Brilliant. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to National Scrutiny Week, and welcome to our first roundtable of the week. I'm delighted to introduce a fantastic group of people today who are going to be here to talk about all things scrutiny and hopefully share some good practice with our audience that are hopefully tuning in out there, maybe on our YouTube channel as well. So lots to talk about, lots to get through. I'm going to hand over first to our hosts today. Really pleased to have Chantel with us from Phoenix, and she's just going to get us started by saying a few words before we get going.
Hi everyone, I'm Chantel Lynch, Service Improvement and Scrutiny Manager at Phoenix. I'd like to welcome you all and thank you for taking part in today's roundtable.
Oh my god, I did the same. I've got a little stand just to get us down.
Roundtable discussions are an opportunity for all of us as TPAS members to get together and discuss some of the engagement issues that are facing the housing sector. And I suppose normally we'd be having these discussions at our regional meetings, but in the current environment, this is now in a digital setting. So it's great to see members from other regions here today who we wouldn't have had the opportunity to otherwise meet. So scrutiny, I think we should all be embracing scrutiny. It's the hot topic that I suppose should always be on our radar. Scrutiny supports us in the sector to improve services. It allows us to champion and empower resident involvement and provides us with the tools to challenge and hold housing providers to account. So no matter where you are in your scrutiny journey, I think there's always something that we can learn. We're here to share our good practice today and hope that in turn it helps raise standards across the sector. Thank you. Back to you, Louise.
You're on mute, Louise.
Okay, thank you for that, Chantel. Really good to get your thoughts and get us really sort of setting the scene for the discussion that's going to happen shortly. So what I want to do is to just go around and get some introductions from people who are with us today. What I also want the people with us today to do is to just tell us very briefly about what scrutiny model they actually are using at the moment and how scrutiny maybe happens in their organisation. So I'm just going to bring everybody in sort of fairly randomly as I see you on the screen to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your scrutiny. So first up, I've got John Upchurch. So John.
First up, scary. Hi everyone, I'm John Upchurch. I work in the engagement and scrutiny team at Sovereign Housing Association. Just very briefly describe what we do for scrutiny. We have like a mix, if you like, of a central panel and a task and finish approach, where the central panel decides what scrutinies they want us to carry out. They make a scope for the scrutiny project, and then we recruit a task and finish group to carry out the scrutiny. So that's it in a nutshell from Sovereign.
Issues with microphone. Sorry, can everybody hear me? I have a few issues with my microphone. Sorry, apologies for that. Next, I'm going to go to John.
Hi, I'm John from Orbit. For those that don't know Orbit, it's a large grouping. Geographical diversity is one of our biggest issues, stretching from Norfolk down to the south coast, Brighton and East Sussex, from Burton-on-Trent down to Ramsgate in Kent, taking in bits of southeast London, Erith Park and the like. So that's a big concern for us. The model we operate, similar to John Upchurch, we have two strategic level groups, one covering homes and neighbourhoods, and one covering service and communities, which allow for the broad ranging discussions. And then we tend to use a task and finish approach where to look at the actual detail. I think it's important to mention though that of course with the COVID-19 everything is up for grabs. We've certainly experienced a vast uplift in terms of the amount of information coming out from the centre by means of webinars. Barely a week goes by without at least one webinar from Orbit, looking at areas of business we've never really had any contact with before. So that's a definite plus. But as Clive Betts said this morning, when it comes to holding to account, that seems to work better face to face rather than online by means of a screen like this.
Brilliant. That's great, John. Thank you for that. Next, let's go to Simon.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to be here today. I'm Simon Barlow. I'm currently a board member at Phoenix Community Housing, but up until September last year, I was the Scrutiny panel member. We are a designated scrutiny panel within Phoenix, as we are resident-led. It's obviously a key part of our engagement. The group will scope in accordance with the business plan or other topics. Nothing is off limits. They define that themselves. They do all the investigation, interviewing officers, desktop research, however that might be. And they have the opportunity to bring in other experts if needed, but they are a designated panel that works predominantly across all areas of the service. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks for that, Simon. Really interesting. Next, we're going to go to Jane.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jane from Chorus Homes. I've been on Scrutiny panel for probably 6 years, but recently it changed when we changed over to Chorus Homes from Luminous Housing. So we've now got a much more solid scrutiny. We do scrutiny by panel, although we have thought about doing the panel and then recruiting a task and finish group, but we haven't actually got there yet. So it is a designated panel at the moment that do scrutiny. Thank you.
Yes, that's great, Jane. Thank you so much for that. Next is Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah from Weavervale Housing Trust in Cheshire. Weavervale, we have a resident-led scrutiny panel to deliver scrutiny for us, of which Felicia's the chair of that panel. Scrutiny forms a key part of the governance structure of the trust, with scrutiny reporting directly into our group audit and assurance committee and to board twice a year. And that just provides that level of assurance, as well as supporting the panel to ensure all the recommendations are actually implemented and implemented on time as well.
Yeah, that's great, Sarah. Thank you for that. Next, we'll go to Tanya.
Hi everyone, I'm Tonya. I'm currently the Customer Engagement Manager for Riverside. We manage and own over 55,000 homes from Kent right across to the west of Scotland. So you can imagine scrutiny comes in all shapes and sizes. However, following a restructure in 2017 around our engagement and involvement structure, our scrutiny now is overseen by our Riverside Customer Voice Executive, which is the formal consultative body Riverside Consults. So the Customer Voice Executive is the central panel. However, they operate mainly in a task and finish, because what happens is they do the scoping and they actually choose the topic by doing a matrix. But what they do, which I think is really important, is that they assign a smaller task and finish group that may include members of the executive and wider involved tenants from across our regions. Previously, scrutiny was done divisionally. Now it's done in that way. The RCV scopes the topic, and then once the RCV gets the final report from the task and finish group, the group is disbanded, and then the RCV progresses that to Riverside and does the challenge sessions, etc., with Riverside, and monitors and reviews that. Once the recommendations are agreed by Riverside and the RCV, the RCV will ensure that they continue to hold Riverside to account by monitoring over the timescales agreed. So that's it pretty much in a nutshell around how scrutiny is done.
Brilliant.
Currently.
Thank you so much for taking us through that. Really interesting. Next, let's go to Adrian.
Good afternoon. I'm Adrian Foster from Aspire Housing. We're pretty much at the beginning of our scrutiny journey, if I'm being completely honest, though I do bring with me previous work from Staffordshire Housing as well. So our approach at Aspire is or will be that we'll have a challenge group, and the challenge group will hold us to account against our 12 customer promises. They were created alongside customers and based around 1,600 conversations we had last year. We've worked with a small group that have formed the start of this challenge group, and they have, with our help, selected a range of measures that will demonstrate that we're meeting these promises, and they will get that as a quarterly sort of report. That group will also make sure that we're engaging customers with any customer-facing policy that we do. It's all about making sure that customers' voice is heard. That's pretty much the remit of that group. If at any point that group highlight any areas of concern, whether that be through action plans not being completed, are customer focused, or something within the measures around the promises that we're not meeting or achieving, they can commission scrutiny then, and that would then trigger a sort of deep dive scrutiny project, which would last sort of 2 to 3 months, I'm envisaging. So the brief is kind of set by that group for that scrutiny, but they're not the only ones that can commission scrutiny. If we're doing an internal review, we may have a scrutiny that supports that as well. And the way the scrutiny is structured is around sort of 4 key headings: accessibility to service, equality and diversity, quality service generally, so things like value for money, and then finally customer voice. So that's the sort of structure of our deep dives that we'll be using.
Excellent. Really interesting to get that information from Adrian there at Aspire. Thank you. Next, we're going to go to Felicia. Yeah, just take you off mute at the moment. That's it. Yeah.
Got it. Hello, my name is Felicia Woodhouse. I am the chair of Scrutiny Panel at Weaver Vale Housing Trust. I think Sarah probably gave you a really good overview of the structure. We are a 5-member tenant-led scrutiny panel. We use a weighted matrix to come up with our topics. We are supported by staff, and we have a lot of access to staff and to the board, and to EMT and to GAC. And we've got a really strong relationship there, which has been very helpful. And I'd say out of any profession that I've had, I feel very supported in this panel, in this role. And we do a lot of training, a lot of TPAS training, I have to say. And it's been holistic support. And we've had some really good outcomes from our work. That's been fabulous.
Brilliant. Really good to hear that. Thank you. That's really good to get that insight into the TPAS training as well. Good plug for TPAS there. Thank you. Brilliant. Let's next go to Jason, please.
Hi, Louise. Hi, everyone. I'm Jason Merrill. I'm a scrutiny member for Cross Keys Homes in Peterborough. We have a group of about 7 people, and our structure really goes through ourselves. Then once we've done our work, it then goes to our residents board. They look at it, make probably amendments to it or whatever, and then it goes to our main board, and then from the main board we are told with our lead officer then helps with getting the recommendations into policy, and we also look at policies alongside the piece of work that we're doing. So our shortest one has been about 3 months, and our longest one is taken on a year, which we've just finished just before lockdown. And we have tried doing scrutiny on WebEx, I think it's called, by telephone, which wasn't that great, to be fair.
Okay, that's great. Again, thank you for that, Jason. Really interesting to know what's happening at Cross Keys. Next, we're going to go to Paula.
Hello, yes, so my name is Paula Grebo. I'm a resident of Sovereign, and I'm also the chair of the Scrutiny Coordination Group. And I live myself in Devon, so Sovereign is across the whole, like most of the southwest, so from Devon all the way up to the Isle of Man and Berkshire and Oxfordshire, so a large area to cover and about 60,000 properties. So we've worked, as John mentioned earlier, as we have the coordination group, and then we set different scrutinies from that, and then try and engage with other residents to do a task and finishing group for us. But we have a really good working relationship with the staff, and we have managed to carry on during this difficult time at the moment, which has been really good and been a different experience, but at least we're still doing the scrutiny work at the moment.
Yeah, that's always good to hear that, Paula. Thank you so much for that. Next, we're going to go to Akila.
Hi, I am Akila Walton, and I am the Customer Involvement Manager for Places for People, and I work for the company Living Plus. We are very new to sort of starting our scrutiny journey. We've been doing a lot of work with TPAS just to upskill and train our staff and our employees just to make sure that they're confident in delivering scrutiny. Traditionally, we've decided to sort of go down a different route to the traditional scrutiny approach due to the nature of our customers sort of having complex needs, being vulnerable and being quite transient. So we'll probably stick to the sort of task and finish groups, but at the moment we're just trying to look at the different creative ways we can sort of still capture our customers' opinions and voices and get them to sort of shape our service and our delivery.
Brilliant. That's great. Thank you ever so much for that, Akila. Really interesting, you starting out your journey and some of the things you've described there. So thank you for that. Next, we're going to go to Anne.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Anne Phillips. I'm Community Investment Officer at EMH, based in the Midlands, approximately 20,000 homes. The panel's been going for a few years now. We've had a changeover of membership, but it's a central panel. Investigation can be orchestrated or suggested by staff, service improvement, residents groups, panel themselves, and they have a look at performance. We're currently finishing off an ASB scrutiny task, which has been challenging, to say the least. If there's any additional work, because we've only got 6 people on our panel, work will be decanted out through our service improvement group for ongoing monitoring.
Okay, that's great. Thanks for sharing that with us, Anne. Next, we're going to go to Julia.
Hi.
Hi, Julia.
I'm actually working with Estuary Housing Association, and I'm the sole scrutiny lead with them at the moment. Before, there used to be a scrutiny panel, and in 2017, there was some discussion at about, or actually 2018, about possibly changing how we do things with scrutiny. And now we're actually doing the boot camp approach to conducting our scrutiny. And we did an initial pilot, and that was on grounds and estates maintenance. And then we've done a second boot camp on complaints since then. So really, we've been learning so much. I cannot tell you through the process. It's really unbelievable. And I've been really enjoying it. yeah, the learning curve has been absolutely massive. But later on, I'll show you some of the different ways of conducting the scrutiny we have used.
Brilliant, that's great. Thank you so much for that, Julia. Next, we're going to go to Cherish.
Hi everyone. Yeah, so I work for Estuary Housing Association. I'm the Senior Customer and Community Engagement Officer. So I work with the customer engagement offices, and part of our role is to help manage the scrutiny, which Julia leads. Like she said, we used to be a panel, but we did find that things did take quite a long time. Like someone said previously, things can take over a year. And also sometimes projects can escalate, or they can go down a different path and things like that. So we tried the boot camp again, like Julia said, and it was fantastic. I absolutely loved it, which means we have one day, everyone's invited, and everyone can have their say, and we like write on the board, and we have little interviews with people. So lots of different ways of doing stuff. And it's working really well so far. Quite a relatively small housing association. We have just over 4,000 homes in the South East and East London. So yeah, like I said, Julia's done 2 projects so far, really massive projects as well, and getting all that in one day, we really had to be quite creative. There's a lot of background work, as I'm sure you appreciate, but the main bulk of it and all the research, a lot of the research is on that one day. But I couldn't recommend it enough, actually, and I'm sure Julia will go into it a bit more later.
Brilliant. That's great, Cherish. Thank you so much for that, and welcome to you all. I think we've gone round everyone now and heard from everybody in terms of their introductions. And can I say, what a fantastic sort of celebration of the diversity of scrutiny, really. You know, we've had task and finish, we've talked about boot camps, designated panels, challenge groups, and I think it really brings home that there's no real right or wrong way of doing scrutiny. There's lots of different ways of doing it, and if it works for your organisation and it works for your residents, then fantastic. That's what scrutiny is all about. So really good to hear the diverse range of scrutiny approaches and frameworks. So thank you for sharing that with us. Okay, I'm not going to go around again in terms of sort of taking you one by one. I'm going to throw it open to everybody now with my next question, which is really getting to the heart, I think, of what scrutiny should be about. And it's that difference or change it actually makes in terms of the end product. So what I wanted to get from yourselves, and I know some of you are at a very early stage and you may not have got there, so you can share your hopes and aspirations if you'd like to, but the ones who've been involved in scrutiny for a while, what would you say is the biggest difference that scrutiny has made in your organisation? So you can either use the hands up function, or if you just want to wave at me, that's absolutely fine too. So I'll throw it open. Who wants to talk to us first? Julia, your hand went up, and I think Felicia next after Julia.
Sorry, I just had to unmute myself. The one thing that really came to me, or the biggest difference that I've noted since being leading scrutiny, is the amount the organisation itself, Estuary, have become more and more used and open and transparent about the process of scrutiny. So there's times in the past that we've conducted boot camps and have been looking into things, and we've kind of experienced, I suppose, what would feel like a little bit more discomfort about being questioned more deeply about things. But actually, it seems like as we're going along, the staff are becoming much more comfortable with the whole process, and are really understanding about what they can actually get out of it. Because, you know, so many people in organisations can actually feel quite stuck at times. You know, what is the solution to this big problem? How do we really find a way forwards? And I think they're really beginning to understand what they can get out of it if they really take part. So yeah, that's what I'd like to say.
Brilliant. Yeah, I love that. And, you know, sort of getting the organisation excited about scrutiny, bringing them along and helping, you know, find solutions to issues and challenges as well, Julia. So great to hear that. Thank you. I did say, Felicia, I'm not sure whether you did have your hand up or whether I was seeing sort of just a movement there, Felicia. I don't know if you want to come in or not.
Well, I'll take it as a cue, shall I? I don't think I did wave, but I'm happy to have my say. I mean, are you looking for something more broad or personal or both?
Anything in terms of what Scrutiny's done in terms of changing something, making a difference, can be anything really.
I have been involved for 3 years. When I started at Weaver Vale, I had just moved into my house 2 weeks prior before I got recruited. And it was a very traditional scrutiny panel when I joined. Things were very much done in traditional manner. I was by far the youngest person on the panel, and just in the time that I've been there, it's completely changed, I would say. We're constantly looking for new ways to do things. We've been outfit with all the technology that we need to be able to do what we need to do. And like Julia said, I think staff are becoming more open to speaking to us and realize that we're not trying to get them into trouble or to cause any harm. And I think we've got a really good relationship. We recently had an event for staff to come and see what the involved tenant groups do, because we're not the only one. And it was really nice just getting to see staff put face with names for them to see who we are and find out what we do, because a lot of people within the organization, what does scrutiny mean? And it was a good opportunity for us to explain a bit. I just made a little note talking about that one thing. There's a phrase that comes up quite a lot. The leadership of the trust will say, "You speak and we listen," and I think a lot of times that can be a really nice catch line. It looks good on Twitter, but I find it to be true.
Excellent.
We are heard, and they listen, and then they take action. So it's very, very good.
Brilliant, really good to hear that. So those changes coming through from your organisation. So thank you for that. I've got John next. John Upchurch has got his hand raised. Over to you, John.
Hello. So at Sovereign, I guess you'd say that it's not to do with for me anyway, it's not to do with the scrutiny results. It's a much broader thing. Where the scrutiny group is part of the governance structure really, and so it reports to the board. The board see their reports, and the board gets to hear the customer's voice, and that's the value, and that's the thing that's caused the excitement, I think, in our sort of exec team and on the board, is that they're, for the first time in ages, they're hearing direct quotes and perhaps little recordings, that sort of thing. We have tried video, didn't end very well, but we'll keep plugging at it, so that you can actually see and hear the customer speaking to them, because actually as further you go up that sort of ladder, I guess the further away you get from the coalface and the further away you get from the customers. So for Sovereign, just to summarize, it's the excitement of hearing the customer voice speaking to you through our reports and through sort of recordings of voices and that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting, John, and I think it's sort of building that theme, isn't it, that we're hearing so far about how scrutiny is important in terms of building relationships, building trust, building rapport, and really connecting sort of customers, tenants, residents with everyone in the organisation, whatever level they're at. It's been that link and listening to the voices you'd said. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's really interesting. Next, I've got Tonia's got a hand up.
Hi. Yes, I think for Riverside, in terms of, I think it really has lived up to its values of being courageous. And really, one of the values is being courageous, trusting and caring, and really looking at things from the customer's perspective. In terms of recently, the scrutiny group did something around the complaints handling process, and they had 9 recommendations, which Riverside accepted all of them. And as a result of this work, along with the wider piece of work, this is helping Riverside to redesign our complaints process around customer need and incorporating output from what the scrutiny group recommended. So I think as well, Riverside hasn't shied away from the constructive criticism that our scrutiny working group has done. In fact, you know, I can attest that they have embraced it. And really, it's about putting our customers at the center of the things we do, and we have lived up to that. That's what I think.
Brilliant. No, I love that, Tonya, and that idea of being a critical friend, providing that challenge, but doing it in a constructive way. And great to hear that Riverside have took on board the recommendations, and they're obviously going to filter through and make a real difference. So being courageous in scrutiny, I think is very important, definitely. So thank you for sharing that with us. Next, I've got Paula, I think it is, yeah.
Hello, you know, I mean, like John said, it is the big picture, but also from a resident point of view, it's when we see the changes that are made. So I think one of our ones recently we've done, we worked really close with the property team, and it was really good to get their support, because obviously a lot of the time it's to do with repairs that we're doing our scrutiny, because that's obviously high on the priority. So yeah, we did one on like the repeat calls to this, the contact centre as to why there were so many for the same job. But it was really good to understand the difference between what right first time meant to us as a resident compared to Sovereign. But it was really good working with the property team and them understanding and coming up with a definition between us both, so that we all agreed with it. And then following on from that, we made a new recommendation. So now there's a new recommendation within the key performance, and I think that's a real big step forward. They've actually listened to our suggestions.
Yeah. Fantastic example, Paula. I really love that. I think, again, it's a really powerful, you know, sort of reminder that, you know, the perspective of the customer, the resident, is so important. You talked about, you know, the right first time. What does that mean? So getting that to a point now where it's part of the key performance indicators and it's really filtered through, I think is fantastic. Great job. Excellent. Thank you for sharing that with us, Paula. Jason, I think you've got your hand up as well.
Yeah, just he's going back to the first question. I will say, when we report to the residents board and our board, we do actually have our chair or vice chair go to those meetings for any feedback that we've missed out or they want us to have a look at later on or whatever. I forgot to say that. Yeah, but going on other things. Yeah, the dash, I think you called it. One of the things you mentioned, it was only a day's thing. I've never heard of that before. So how does that work?
Well, we'll maybe hear a little bit more about that, Jason, as we progress. I'm sure the boot camp approach was something maybe, yeah, we can talk about in a little while. But thank you for sharing those thoughts with us, Jason. That's really good of you. Next on the hands up, then I have Chantel.
At Phoenix, I think that the review recommendations have enabled us to make value for money savings through service improvements, direct cash savings, and, you know, just general good learning practice. And then once those recommendations have been implemented, I think they've allowed us to bring about real change for the benefit of all of our residents. And, you know, just to echo what others have said earlier on, it does increase joint working between residents and staff, and we've certainly noticed that it's done that even further than what we already have in our gateway model.
Yeah, great. Thank you again for sort of highlighting that and the changes that have come about through that. So thank you for that, Chantel. I think I've still got to speak Simon, John and Jane and Akila. So I'm going to come to Simon first, and I've got Anne as well after that. Yep, so Simon, you first.
Hi, thanks for that. It's a neat follow on from Chantel. So I think, yeah, I echo everything that everyone else has said about the power of scrutiny. Breaking down borders, I think, is also key, that us as residents can be objective. We can look at things from both sides. I think one key thing that we've had highlighted is that often policies are introduced. They might have been through various ways of consultation with everyone, but actually it's the frontline teams that actually have to implement those and get assessed according to those. And one thing that we've certainly seen is a decision that was made with all the best intentions in the world of a policy or a change, then delivers in a way which may not be suitable for all residents who need to experience that. And we've been able to then shed light on that, or the panel, scrutiny panel has, and also then develop from that communications, because again, things that might be assumed potentially or overlooked as being understood, you know, may not be. You know, there are changes in personnel. It could be housing officers, and people think it's somebody it's been for 10 years, and you know, those are basic things. And I think that's the power of scrutiny. It's a good health check as well. Thank you.
Absolutely, I think that's a good description. Yeah, definitely a good health check, making sure that there's a shared understanding and shared working around these things as well. So thank you for that, Simon. Next, going to go to John Bennett.
2 years ago, there was concern across the sector that with the ongoing rollout of universal credit, debt levels for housing associations were going to rise substantially, which is obviously a concern. We undertook a piece of work with the income team, looking at the suite of letters they used to communicate to tenants who were getting into arrears or worse, facing eviction. That has been very successful and has reduced our debt levels to significantly below expectations. But it is very opposite, because it's coming back round again now, because we're going to revisit it this week in the light of the perception that debt levels will again start to increase as a knock-on effect of the COVID-19 lockdown. And again, it's a question of making the company understand what's important to customers and how their communications are received and handled. And John Upchurch made the point earlier. It's important that the housing associations and providers do understand how their communications are going to be received by their customers.
Yeah, great points. Thank you for that, John. Really interesting. Next, it's Jane at Chorus.
Just sorting out my microphone, I'm muting myself. Thanks, Louise. Since we joined Places for People, became Chorus as opposed to Luminous, the whole scrutiny feels very, very different where we are. It's as if we are really taken notice of now, where we didn't feel we were before. The staff are very open, willing to join in the scrutiny with us, and we do make a difference, and we help to improve services. The last one that we did was ASB. We did bite off a bit more than we could chew there, because we took on the whole topic instead of doing it in bite-sized chunks, but we learned from that one. And as with many others, our recommendations go direct to board. One of our panel goes to board with the recommendations, and our board are very, very receptive now, and they took on most of our recommendations on board and starting to make a change to ASB. They're now beginning to accept us as a critical friend and not just someone criticising. And I think that's very, very important, that there's a difference between them feeling that you're criticising them and them understanding that all you're doing is helping them improve the service, because it's a joint thing, I think. And that's what I've noticed since we've become Chorus. Everything is much more open. Thank you.
No, again, really good insight there, Jane. And, you know, the fact that you can sort of describe, again, the sort of journey you've been on to get to where you are now, and looking at, you know, the recommendations and how those are filtering through is a really positive thing to hear. So thank you for that. Next, I'm going to go to Akila.
Hi, I suppose for me, it's sort of what we aspire to be. For Place for People, you know, we always try and put people at sort of the forefront of our minds, whether it's in decision making, you know, scrutiny, any sort of customer involvement activity. We do have a people first approach. So I suppose my vision would be that we end up being in a position where scrutiny just becomes the norm. It's not something that it's, oh, we have to do it. It's not a tick box exercise. It's something that is just happening naturally. customers see the benefits from it, as well as our staff and our frontline workers who are sort of expected to go out and scrutinize with customers. I think once we get to the point where it's just naturally happening and is not, have you guys done any scrutiny? When are we having these activities? And sort of feeling the pressures from people. Yeah, that's for me, that's kind of the goal and the dream for us here at Living Plus.
Brilliant, Akira. And I'm sure you could see lots of people nodding with you when you were saying that. And you're absolutely right, you know, to just get it embedded as something that, you know, you do as part of the day job, and it's accepted as something that's a real positive for the business and for customers as well. And people won't know, Akira ran a session for, I think it was about 40 or 50 staff members to come together and really just sort of, you know, get them familiar with Scrutiny, get them on board, and it was very successful. So you're making a good start, definitely.
Thank
good
you.
Stuff. Brilliant, thank you. Next, we're going to go to Anne.
Hiya. I thought this was a really interesting question. That's the biggest difference Scrutiny's made to your organisation. I think it's the managing expectations on both sides of the table of what the outcomes of the scrutiny investigation was. So I know they might want to plant, I'm simplifying this, 10 trees on every corner on every estate, yeah, for example. But in reality, you can't plant 10 trees on every corner on every estate. So it's like at EMH, we've got an EMT sponsor, executive management team, sponsor of the investigation, so they can support the initial findings all the way through the investigation, and they can have healthy discussions, shall we say, of what's achievable and not what's achievable through budget or any other things that's going on. So I would say being honest to manage expectations on both sides of the table for our residents, supporting people, you know, scrutiny panel across to the board.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, that, isn't it, around expectations and how those are managed and developed. While you want the scrutiny very much to maintain its independence, because that is what makes good scrutiny, being able to be independent, operate independently from the organisation. You still want to have those really strong relationships and links so they can come together and look at recommendations and discuss what's possible and not. So I think that's an important point, that Anne, around developing that trust and again, you know, that support from staff. So thank you for that. Okay, so we've got about 20 minutes or so left to run of this session, and already, yeah, I've missed one person who wanted to speak. So apologies, Adrian. I will come to you now.
Thank you. Waving furiously. I can't find the little raise hand thing, but anyway, never mind.
Not to worry. Not to worry.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of what's been said, and I've seen that, you know, in all my time working within customer engagement. I think the one thing, or one success that I've experienced previously that wasn't quite mentioned, was when we used the challenge group approach, is it brought together all the other bits of engagement as well. It kind of gave them a home. So you would have let's say a customer inspector or a mystery shop report that was monitored, where who would pick up the things that we were finding out, and actually it's the challenge group that took that and took ownership of it. And because they got those reports on a quarterly basis, they were able to pick up sort of like the repeat of sort of offences, if you like, or the failings of our services. And that was one of the successes as well, because they picked up that we were letting down a specific group of customers. Customers that were trying to access our homeless service, because we only operated a phone line 9 till 12. After that, it was a message service, and through that sort of in it and picking it up, we were able to raise its profile. This is a problem, and we need to do something about it. The mystery shoppers, they carried on testing it to make sure that any changes going in, but the management, the staff, the colleagues, they got back with a plan to that challenge group to say, well, yeah, we recognise it's an issue now. Thanks for raising it. This is what we're going to do about it. And it involved staff training and other bits like that. And they were satisfied that that would, you know, sort of fix the problem, as it were. and it turned out it did. But you know, without that sort of involvement from the challenge group, we wouldn't necessarily have got to that conclusion, that successful conclusion, as quickly as we did.
Brilliant. And again, another really powerful example of how, you know, involving tenants through your challenge group and the scrutiny has managed to really change things and improve things, you know, across the business. So thank you for sharing that, Adrian. Sarah, I think you had your hand up too. Yeah.
Yes, I just wanted to share a little bit about the journey that we've had and with scrutiny. Felicia, she touched on it before, but I agree with pretty much everybody's been saying. But we undertook a number of changes about 3 years ago. That coincided with myself joining the trust and Felicia as well. We changed how the scrutiny panel was managed. We brought it into the customer engagement team, which is my team, whereas previously it sat within a corporate function within the organisation. And by bringing that panel into the customer engagement team, it brought it in touch with all of the other customer engagement activities that are going on across the trust, alongside being able to provide that panel with a dedicated resource who could provide the ongoing support with all of the individual members of that team and support them to formulate their thoughts, not lead on anything, but to provide them with that dedicated resource. And in doing so, I think we don't have anything glossy. We're not a very corporately sort of organisation. We are very down to earth and grounded, I think it's fair to say, at Weaver Vale. By providing that one single person to that panel who can pick out their strengths, a strong, fully functional team who are able to make really well-meant and thought-out decisions about the topics and areas of the business they want to investigate and scrutinise. And in doing so, they've been able to really develop their thoughts and ideas into absolutely brilliant scrutiny investigations, which have led into making some absolutely brilliant recommendations, which have supported a number of operational service improvements, which have been led by the scrutiny panel, particularly around property services, in developing our new customer hub. We were one of the few organisations that didn't even have a contact centre, which made it very difficult for customers to even report a repair. And scrutiny picked up on that, and they've made some fabulous recommendations, which are in the process of being implemented at the moment. And I think it'd be fair to say that now, from 3 years ago when they weren't fully functional or as strong a voice, they are now a fully valued group that sits both operationally and at board. They've got that link with our customers throughout the whole of the organisation. It's not one area of the business or the other, it's across the whole group, which makes it quite unique, and which is why we all value scrutiny, Felicia and all of our members so highly. And they really have been part of our aspiration to embed the customer voice across the trust, which I think scrutiny does an absolutely fantastic job at doing so.
Brilliant.
I think you have to agree with me with that one.
No, that's fantastic to hear. Thank you for that, Sarah. A bit more information about how you've built scrutiny up there. So thank you for that. Last comment on this question, I think, from Cherish, and then I'm going to move to the last one, which is about sharing good practice and some top tips to people who are involved in scrutiny. So Cherish, if you want to come in for the last word on this subject.
Absolutely. So I just wanted to mention as well that through our impact assessments that we do after our reviews, a lot of the managers always say that the biggest impact for them is that they were able to stop and actually look at a service as a whole. Whereas, they're working, we're so busy working every day, and it's nice to actually stop, work with the customers that are receiving the service, and actually are able to really look at it together. And I think because without scrutiny and Julia going on at them, they never be able to stop really. And actually we try to show them through these impact assessments and show them the changes to make them know that it's worthwhile. So, because I think, all that work and I'm not going to see any difference, but I think that's why these sort of assessments are really good. And it's just really nice to go back to the managers and say, how did you find that? And I found that really interesting.
I think that's a great point. I love the idea of impact assessments, you know, so you can really sort of demonstrate, you know, what's happened, the changes that have been made, and also this idea of just giving staff a bit of time and space to be able to work with customers and have a look at services, because fundamentally, you know, most staff and tenants want the same thing, which is better services and to improve things. So I love that approach, Cherish. Thank you for sharing that with us. Sounds very positive. Okay, so this session was all about sharing good practice. So now is your time to shine in terms of sharing your good practice with our YouTube audience and also with each other. So my question is, what is your one top tip for doing effective, you know, positive scrutiny? What is your one top tip? So does anybody want to start us off? Adrian, you were in quick then. You must have realised I've forgotten about you last time. So good man, over to you.
Yeah, straight in there. So the one tip that, or I mean, I wrote a number actually, but the one thing that I would get people to ensure they do is make sure it's evidence-based. So any findings, anything else, it's got to have solid foundations. It's got to come from that wider tenant voice. It's no good having 5 or 6 people sat in a room making decisions, you know, and coming up with recommendations for scrutiny based on their own service, you know, experiences. It adds to the understanding, of course, but it should be based on what that wider tenant group is telling you, and that will increase the credibility, you know, and of the work that's being done. Base it on solid fact. There you are. That's my one tip.
And a mighty fine tip as well, Adrian. Absolutely spot on. Everything you said there, totally agree, and as does everybody else. Really important. Thank you for that. Julia, I think you had your hand up as well. Did you want to share a top tip with us, please? Oh, I seem to have lost Julia. Oh, there she is.
Sorry. Yeah, I've got one top tip, which is I understand that I think with scrutiny, it's like a really good balance between making sure you've really prepared and really understand the subject, really looked at it with a sort of fine tooth comb, and actually also using creative approaches. So we found in our boot camp that's really useful. It kind of helps people to come away sometimes from some of the lens through which they've been seeing things the whole time, and particularly with people, the professionals in the organisation, it's that lens that can get you stuck, you know. And yeah, so those approaches have been really useful. So in some of our reports, rather than having it all written, we've got a number of things just in kind of like mind maps and done visually, and that really helps to see the bigger picture, to kind of see missing links in complex situations. I can show you just one example. I don't know whether you can see it at all, but we've got that kind of thing in our reports, and yeah, it just seems to communicate very well issues much more quickly. But yeah, that's my top tip.
Brilliant. I love this idea of being creative and what you showed us there. Again, I think that's really good, isn't it, to sort of try out new things and look at how you can maybe keep things fresh and do things differently. So fantastic. Thank you for that. Next, let's go to Cherish.
Oh, I didn't have my hand up.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, from before.
No worries.
While I'm talking, I might as well say what I think is really good is just working really closely from start to end. I think is quite important. Like get everyone involved. Try and just communication is really key. Starting from the top and just making sure that you know your scrutiny leads are leading it all as well, and we're then the staff are communicating it to the right people in your organisation and back and forth, and that's just so important. It saves a lot of time. I think I found that during the process. So that's my tip.
Brilliant. Yeah, really important about the planning and sort of the project management and making sure that works correctly, you know, to deliver effective and efficient scrutiny. So yeah, thank you for that, Cherish. John Upchurch, I've still got your hand showing us up. Is that still up, or was it down?
My hand is still up.
Good, that's always great.
Top tip from me would be, apart from what everybody else has just said, because they're all great tips, you know, and I agree wholeheartedly with everything so far. But the one thing I'd say is If you're a member of the organisation, work with your group or your residents to achieve trust, and vice versa. If you're a resident, work with your organisation to achieve trust at that organisational level, where you know that your group will be speaking to whoever it is, the board, and it's a trusting thing. And I think to do that, you need to collaborate with each other and work together on things rather than being in opposition, and also to have those adult to adult conversations where you say what you think and you don't mind, and you take the answer because you're an adult, and it's not that traditional landlord approach of speaking down to their tenants, la, 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 like that. It's very much on an equal basis. So that's my top tip.
Brilliant, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for that. Next, I'm going to come to the other John. So John Bennett this time for your top tip.
Yeah. After you've completed a project, always make a point of revisiting at 3 months or 6 months, whatever the timescale appropriate. A, to make sure that the recommendations have been implemented with the outcome which they were designed to deliver, but also to see if there's any learnings that can be taken from the process and applied to future exercises.
Yeah. Again, fantastic tip there, John. Really important part of scrutiny to revisit stuff and keep an eye on things in terms of the recommendations. So thank you for that. Next, I'm going to come to Tonya.
Top tip. So in addition to what everyone else has said, my top tip for staff is that we should continue to positively surrender to the scrutiny process and be transparent and respond to our challenges that we get in a professional way. One of the things I am learning is that customers are not out to get us, they're here to help us. In terms of the customer panel, my top tip is that we should make sure we have the right people with the right skills. That's those are my top tips.
Excellent. Fantastic tips there from Tonya at Riverside. Appreciate those. Next, we'll go to Jane.
Hi. A bit like John, really. All of the tips are fantastic, and I've made a note of quite a few. My top tip is to challenge. Don't be afraid to challenge. Just because things are there, they're not set in stone. Just because procedures are there and because standards are there, they're not set in stone. And don't be afraid to think out of the box sometimes and challenge. That's my top tip.
Brilliant. Yeah, again, fantastic tip from Jane there. Really appreciate you sharing that with us. Next, we'll go to Simon.
Thank you. Yeah, John stole my thunder with the trust line, but I think the key thing is people are investing a lot of time. The panel, they're coming forward, they're providing valuable information that if you were as an organisation to invest in getting consultants or other organisations, then it would cost you quite a lot. So the main thing with the group is to invest in them in whatever form that may take. But also I think to have some respect for them, to give them ownership, particularly where recommendations are concerned. So at Phoenix, the recommendations are all monitored on a traffic light system. They won't sign them off, and they liaise with Chantel, we liaise with Chantel, and we ask to see evidence, and not be afraid to just say, well, we've done the review, that's it, over to you, but to keep on that, as the other John touched on as well, and following up, and also not being afraid to revisit it is key, as the other John said as well. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for those tips there, Simon. Again, really good to have those along. I think I've got now Sarah, and then I'm going to come to Jason, and then I'm going to finish with Chantel, as they were kindly the host. So Jason first, and then Sarah.
I think for us, a lot of their members are members that have been around the tenant scene for a long while. So for new tenant groups or resident scrutiny groups, use older residents, because they will know the organisation inside and out. So we'll have the history of what it was like before you were amalgamated with anybody, and or whether it's a good or bad. So that they've got two sides to everything. And there was another one as well, but I can't think what the other one was.
Don't worry, Jason. It's good to have that thought around experience and using experience of residents who've been, you know, been around for a while, and mixing that up with new people as well. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Next, I'm going to go to Sarah.
Yes. If you are working with a scrutiny panel or a test and finish group, I think it's really important that you don't agree to recommendations or actions that you cannot deliver. Work with your scrutiny panel to agree a realistic and meaningful recommendation. Scrutiny panel members are reasonable people who are very articulate and will work with you to actually agree that final recommendation. There's absolutely no point agreeing and signing off a list of recommendations that cannot be delivered, as well as being delivered in a reasonable time frame as well. You're only setting yourselves up for failure if you don't do this. And I think for scrutiny panel members and communication staff, always recognise your achievements, your scrutiny panel members' achievements, share those achievements with a wider customer base, as well as the staff, the general office staff, as well as the board and other committees, to make the members feel valued within the organisation, because their achievements are so easily forgotten if we don't shout out loudly enough about it.
Yeah, again, really important point, that about celebrating and making sure we promote and tell people about the good work that's been done. And that's what National Scrutiny Week's all about. So it's great that we're giving that a platform to share that with the sector. So thank you for that, Sarah. So finally, because we're going to wrap up today's session, I want to hand over to Chantel at Phoenix, and just let her sort of say a few closing words before we finish.
Okay, thank you, Louise. I mean, we've had some great points raised there about how we can improve scrutiny in the sector. My tip would have been to just ensure that the panel are supported through training, whether that's through TPAS, our own kind of in-house bespoke training systems. At Phoenix, we have the Phoenix Academy, or, you know, whether you just deliver some kind of online training. But I think it's important, as others have said, that, you know, there's residents out there that are giving up their time to come and help do scrutiny in our organisation and to lead that. So it's important that we do invest in them. So thank you for that.
No, again, really important about investing and sort of supporting scrutineers to do the job effectively through training and other, you know, sort of resources as well. So thank you for that, Chantel. Just missed one person, so apologies to Akila. I'm just going to let you have the sort of final word, just because I don't want you to go away thinking I've missed you. So over to yourself for tis the last word this time.
To be honest, I was just going to say a tip would be just to enjoy it. Try not to, you know, let it be one of those, again, like I mentioned before, one of those tasks that you feel like you have to do. Enjoy it, enjoy being with your customers, enjoy sharing knowledge and experience and sort of supporting each other and building a different type of relationship where it's not about chasing rent or repairs or supporting them for sort of other things that's going on with their life. Just yeah, enjoy the opportunity and learning from each other.
Brilliant. I'm so glad we came to you to finish that off, because what a fantastic note to end the session on, about enjoying it. And absolutely, you know, yeah, it's very serious scrutiny, yeah, it delivers some fantastic results and there's lots of things to think about, but ultimately it's got to be a positive experience. And the fact that so many tenants, residents, customers give up their time to get involved is really testament to the good work that organisations are doing around scrutiny up and down the country. So big thank you to you all today for coming along and contributing to today's roundtable. You've been absolutely fantastic. It's just day one of Scrutiny Week. We've got lots more to come in the next few days. So please do join in. Please do get involved, and let's continue to celebrate the fantastic work of Scrutiny. So thank you, everybody. Look after yourselves and hope to see you again soon. Cheers, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.